Hello, everybody. I'm Mark Levine, City Council member from here in the 7th District, Chair of the City Council's Health Committee, joined today, of course, by the Commissioner of Health, Dr. Mary Bassett, and my colleagues in government, State Senator Brian Benjamin, who represents most of the relevant area, if not all of it, and, of course, my neighbor to the north, Councilmember Ydanis Rodriguez. We're here to talk to you today about an outbreak of Legionella affecting the areas of southern Washington Heights and northern Hamilton Heights. I'm going to defer to the Commissioner to talk more in depth about the nature of the outbreak. As many of you already know, there have been 8 reported cases, and thankfully no fatalities yet. We do have important messaging, though, that we want the community to hear, which is that this is cause to be alert and cause to be proactive, but not cause for panic. And the Commissioner will talk in more detail about who is at risk and how to deal with that risk, but we want anyone who has flu-like symptoms, especially people who are over the age of 50, to seek medical attention so they can get tested for Legionella. It's a very simple test, and it's important that people get tested early. This disease, if caught early, is treatable through antibiotics, and if people wait, often it can be fatal, or in some cases it can be fatal. So we want people to be proactive in seeking a test if they think they have symptoms. Brevemente en español, esto se va a hacer bilingüe, pero venimos hoy a contarles un brote de la enfermedad de Legionnaires que ha afectado ya, ha habido 8 casos en lo que es el sur de Washington Heights y el norte del Hamilton Heights. Como les dije, ha habido 8 casos, afortunadamente ningún caso fatal hasta el momento. Queremos que todo el mundo sepa, no que haya pánico, sino que sepan que si tienen síntomas de gripe, o sea, fiebre o dolores de cuerpo, que vayan a hacerse un chequeo con un doctor en un centro médico. Hay una prueba muy rápido y fácil, ni siquiera requiere que le hagan prueba de sangre, se hace a través de prueba de orina, así que es fácil y rápido. Pero es importante que todo el mundo que tenga síntomas de gripe, tales como fiebre, que vayan a un médico de una vez. Esta enfermedad, si se coge pronto, es fácil de tratarlo con medicamentos de antibióticos, y los casos de que muchas veces cuando hay fatalidades es porque alguien esperó muy tarde para hacerse el chequeo. So I'm going to pass it off now to our Commissioner, Dr. Bassett, for a more detailed medical update. Please, Dr.
Thank you very much. To my Health Committee Chair and Council Member for this area, thanks very much for having us. As you've heard, the Health Department is investigating a community cluster of Legionnaires disease affecting people who are in lower Washington Heights. We've identified 8 cases who were diagnosed in the last 7 days. All of them but one was hospitalized. One patient has already been discharged, and the remainder remain hospital. There have been no deaths, as the council member has said. The important thing for the public to know right now is that Legionnaires disease is not transmitted between people. You don't catch it from one person. You get it from breathing water mist that is contaminated with this bacteria. This bacteria likes warm water. We see more cases in the summer months. And when we see a cluster of cases which share a geography and nothing else that we can tell, we are worried about cooling towers. So the department has already identified all of the cooling towers that are registered with the city in this geography, and has, in the course of today, tested all of these cooling towers. We are very anxious that people remain vigilant for the symptoms. Let me just repeat them again, although the council member has listed them very completely. They are fever, body aches, cough, shortness of breath, symptoms that people can confuse with the flu, If you live in Lower Washington Heights and you have these symptoms and you're over 50, in particular, we want you to seek medical attention and have a test for Legionnaires' disease. It's a simple and rapid test, and the disease is readily treatable with very simple antibiotics. We are going to be having a community meeting at a church right here on 153rd, St. Luke's AME Church at 153rd and Amsterdam Avenue. We're going to have people out leafleting and at subway stops and notifying the community. These are really important. We want to make sure that everyone in the community is aware of this cluster and knows the steps that they can take to identify any Legionella-related illness and seek care early. We have, in addition, because older people are at higher risk, we've reached out proactively to senior centers in the area to make sure that they're aware that we want to be alert for Legionnaire's disease. And that is where we stand right now. We're in the early days of examining this cluster. It may be that there are additional cases identified. We're actively looking for the source. This has the geography of a cooling tower related exposure, and we rely on the people of this neighborhood to look after themselves, look after their neighborhoods, and seek care early during this period as we seek the source. That's, yes.
I just want to add a few things, and that was an outstanding update. There are so many misconceptions about Legionnaire's disease, and the Commissioner mentioned a couple, but we just have to emphasize, this is not a contagious disease. You don't catch Legionnaires because someone who has the disease coughs on you or hugs you. This is an airborne illness. Secondly, don't confuse this with water towers, which are in almost every building. This has nothing to do with the drinking water or the water that we bathe with or that comes out of your sink. This has nothing to do with water towers. This also has nothing to do with window air conditioners that so many of us have in our apartments. That's an entirely different device, has nothing to do with this. This is cooling towers that are used in buildings with central air conditioning that give off a water vapor. And when it's hot out, and it's been really hot the last couple weeks, this bacteria thrives. And so the water in the cooling towers, when it gets really warm, because they are running the air conditioning, the vapor that's produced, if it gets contaminated, that is what people can breathe. Now, it's also important to point out, it's not about whether you live in one of those buildings. This vapor can travel through the air to the next building across the street, and part of the reason we're not giving precise addresses and precise geography right now is because we don't want someone to think that just because they live across the street, they are not at risk. We want people who are in the area of southern Washington Heights or northern Hamilton Heights to be on alert for these symptoms, especially if they are at risk. So I also want to tell you how good the health department's team is. They have already today had a team. They have a team of dozens of testers who are out there canvassing buildings where we know they're cooling towers and where we suspect they're cooling towers, and they're already doing tests. Now, those tests take a while to get back, but they have been incredibly proactive. And as the Commissioner mentioned, they've already had people out during this rush hour at subway stops distributing flyers, and they're going to be out tomorrow morning again in all the affected areas. And as the Commissioner mentioned, we have a community meeting tomorrow night at St. Luke's Church at 7 o'clock on 153rd in Amsterdam, where the community can come. We're going to have health department, medical experts there, ready to answer questions. So, brevemente en español, para aclarar, esto no se pega. Esto no es nada contagioso. Esto no se trata de tos o abrazar. Esto es respirar aire contaminado, usualmente por una torre de enfriamiento. Segundo, esto no es un aire acondicionado normal que tenemos muchos en nuestras ventanas. Torres de enfriamiento son de edificios con aire central usualmente. Y segundo, no se trata de vivir en uno de esos edificios porque el vapor puede transmitir y viajar varias cuadras. Así que todo el mundo que vive en el área afectado, que es el sur de Washington Heights y el norte de Hamilton Heights, deberían estar alertos y por si les salen síntomas de gripe, vayan de una vez a ver un médico para hacerle el chequeo. I'm going to also acknowledge, sorry, I should have done this already, that we've been joined by our wonderful Assembly member, Al Taylor, who does represent the affected area and has been very active on this. And before we open up the Q&A, I want to see if any of my colleagues want to make any comments on the topic. Okay, please.
Yeah. Well, as you know, this situation that we're dealing right now covers both districts, the 7 and the 10, because this go all north to area that include also Edgecombe Avenue, that is also includes Amsterdam Avenue. In my way of coming here, the first thing that I did was telling my brother who live at 160 between Amsterdam and Broadway to let him know that if one of his 2 daughters has a cold or has a fever, to take the necessary precaution that has to be taken. You know, we live this experience in the Bronx, and we know that we have a great commission and we have a city that is working 24/7, not only during the last few days, but in the whole time that they've been working. We learned the lesson in the Bronx, and we want to be sure that what is affecting us, my colleague council members say, this disease that is affecting residents of the both districts that we represent is really taken care. The second thing is, even though it is, again, in his district, I want to call a special attention to the senior citizens who live in the NYCHA building at 155 in Amsterdam. They have to be, you know, everyone that live there, I have family members who live there, and I also call them too. So anyone that have a relative, especially a senior citizens who live in those NYCHA building at 155 in Amsterdam, it is important for all to be in touch with those individuals. So we trust the great job that the commissioner does. We will continue working together to be sure that anyone, again, that have a symptom or a fever or a cold, to please get the medical attention that they need. Nosotros estamos aquí en algo que afecta, como dijo el concejal, la parte sur del distrito que yo represento y la parte norte de su distrito. Todo lo que tiene que ver con el área de río a río, de la 155, 165, nosotros queremos que en ese vecindario nosotros prestarle la atención necesaria. It is important that especially those people who live from 155 to 165, from river to river, to pay specific attention to that area, and especially to look for senior citizens and our children. Tenemos enfocarnos especialmente en los niños y en las personas mayores, que son los primeros que tenemos que proteger.
Do you want to clarify the age thing?
The age thing. The vast majority, thank you, Council Member, and whenever we have clusters like this, it's very important to mobilize everyone, as you've suggested, but the vast majority of people we see with Legionnaires' disease are over the age of 50. They're people who smoke, so if you smoke and you want another reason to quit, among many, this is a good time to quit. Or if you have any underlying chronic disease like diabetes or asthma or any chronic lung disease, or you take medications that may affect your immune system, that's what makes you more at risk. This is not a pediatric disease. We don't see Legionnaires' disease in children, and we very rarely see cases over the age of under the age of 50. So I just want to make clear that it's the older people who we're concerned about the most, and older here means people who may not seem that old to all of us. It means people who are 50 and over. All right, and not children, with respect, Council Member. This is not a disease that we see in pediatric age group.
Commissioner, of the 8 cases that have been identified, were they all from the same building or from multiple buildings?
No, when we identify a community cluster, it's because what people share is a geography. And in this case, what they share is, I guess what I should be referring to as southern Washington Heights and northern Hamilton Heights. That's a geography that they share. We become concerned about a different type of building level exposures when people share a building. In this case, people shared a geography. That's why we're describing it as a community cluster.
It's more than one building.
It's more than one building. We don't release information that might result in people's private medical information becoming discernible to the public or the press. But yes, the people who have been identified in this community cluster do not come from all one building. They come from one neighborhood. We have all of the people were diagnosed in the last 7 days. One person never was hospitalized and was treated as an outpatient.
Why not?
I mean, they weren't sick enough to be hospitalized. They had, I guess, what a doctor would call walking pneumonia. Legionnaires' disease is a pneumonia, but it's not. It's caused by breathing in contaminated water mist, which I should anoint the health committee chair as an honorary doctor. He's given a very complete, a very complete description. So that person wasn't sick enough to require hospitalization. The other people were hospitalized, and of those 7, 1 was discharged, and the other 6 remain hospitalized. At this time, there have been no deaths. No, there was one person under the age of 50.
Commissioner, how long will it take for you to get the results back from the testing of the cooling tower?
We get preliminary results in the next day. They're all these but the full results, which are what we call cultures, where we actually grow the bacteria in the laboratory, takes 2 weeks. But we do get some preliminary signals, and we act on those preliminary results to advise extra cleaning mechanisms if there's any suggestion that there might be Legionnaires in the water of the cooling tower.
How large of an area do you test?
We are sort of put a circle around, and it's a kilometer in diameter. I think Councilmember Rodriguez described it as river to river, and that is correct, river to river. So just to reiterate, Lower Manhattan, not Lower Manhattan, Lower Washington Heights, sorry. Let me try it one more time.
No.
Why don't you try it one more time?
So we're going to say Lower
Washington Heights or Southern and Northern Hamilton. Southern Washington Heights, and let me repeat it 3 times with your agreement. This is Southern Washington Heights, Northern Hamilton Heights. If you live in these areas, especially if you're somebody 50 or over, you smoke, you have underlying medical issues, or you're taking medications that weaken your immune system, don't brush off symptoms that are of a flu-like illness, muscle pains, cough, fever, difficulty breathing. Go see a doctor, have a test. This is readily treatable and with antibiotics, and we want people who have this disease to be diagnosed early. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Thank you all very much.